If you are in your 50s or 60s and you wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning, stare at the ceiling, and drag yourself through the next day feeling barely rested, I need you to pay attention. What is happening to your sleep is not a mystery. It is not just aging, and it is not something you have to accept. I am Dr. William, and today I want to talk about turmeric, not the pinch you throw in a curry, but a specific preparation that works on the exact biological reason most people in this age group cannot stay asleep. But first, you need to understand why your sleep broke in the first place, because if you skip this part, nothing else I say will make sense. Why sleep changes after 50. Your brain has a sleep control center called the hypothalamus. Think of it as an orchestra conductor. It coordinates hormones and chemical signals to move you through the stages of sleep each night. When you're young, this system runs tightly. After 50, it gets disrupted. One of the biggest disruptors is pro-inflammatory cytokines. Your immune system communicates through chemical messengers, and some of them are alarm signals. They tell your body to stay alert and ready to respond. As we age, most of us start producing more of these alarm signals, not because there is an actual threat, but because decades of processed food, accumulated oxidative stress, and hormonal shifts have nudged the immune system into a permanently elevated state. Doctors call this inflammaging. Here is what that does to your sleep. Those alarm chemicals, particularly TNF-alpha and interleukin-6, travel through the bloodstream and interact directly with your brain. They keep the hypothalamus on patrol, so even when you are physically exhausted, part of your brain stays vigilant. That is why people in their 50s often fall asleep fine but wake at 2 or 3 in the morning. That is exactly when inflammatory signaling tends to peak, pulling you out of deep sleep. The relationship goes both ways. Poor sleep raises inflammation, and inflammation further wrecks your sleep. For people who have had years of suboptimal sleep, this cycle becomes deeply entrenched. Here is what most people have never heard their doctor explain. This is not a melatonin problem. Melatonin helps you fall asleep. But if inflammation is what is waking you at 3 a.m., melatonin is addressing the wrong end of the problem. That is why so many people take it and still wake up in the night. Where turmeric enters, and why most people use it wrong. The active compound in turmeric that matters here is curcumin, a plant-based molecule that directly suppresses those alarm signal chemicals. Published research confirms curcumin works by dialing down something called NF-κB, which is essentially the master switch your immune system uses to turn on inflammation. A 2023 study in the journal Food Function found that curcuminoids have a direct sleep-enhancing effect by targeting the histamine H1 receptor, a key driver of brain alertness. When curcumin binds to this receptor, it has a calming effect on that wakefulness signaling. Think of it as pressing mute on the part of your brain that keeps saying, "Stay awake, stay ready." A randomized clinical review following curcumin supplementation over 21 days found clinically meaningful improvements in sleep quality, fatigue reduction, and overall well-being. But here is the critical problem. Curcumin on its own is nearly useless in the body. Without anything to enhance absorption, studies suggest it is absorbed at rates as low as 1%. You can consume turmeric every day for months, and your bloodstream may barely register it. This completely changes how you need to prepare it. The 3 things that actually make it work. Black pepper. Black pepper contains piperine, which enhances curcumin absorption by up to 970%, nearly 10 times. Piperine slows the liver's clearance of curcumin so it stays in circulation long enough to reach your tissues. A 1/4 teaspoon is all you need. This is not optional. Fat. Curcumin is fat-soluble. It dissolves in fat, not water. Mix it with plain water and absorption suffers. Mix it with full-fat milk or coconut milk and the curcumin binds to fat molecules and gets transported much more efficiently through the gut wall. This is exactly why traditional golden milk uses warm milk. It was not tradition for its own sake. It was intuitive biochemistry. Warmth. Gentle heat releases curcumin's bioactive compounds. You do not need to boil it. In fact, excessive heat degrades it, but a warm, steaming preparation rather than a cold one meaningfully improves absorption. How to prepare it? Step by step. You will need 1 cup of full-fat milk, dairy, coconut, or oat milk with fat all work. 1 teaspoon of high-quality turmeric powder. Look for labeled curcumin content of 4 to 5% or higher. A 1/4 teaspoon of ground black pepper. A small pinch of ground ginger. A 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon. More on why this matters in a moment. Honey or maple syrup to taste. Warm your milk over low to medium heat. Do not boil it. Add the turmeric, black pepper, ginger, and cinnamon and whisk gently. Let it simmer on very low heat for 5 to 7 minutes, stirring occasionally. Pour into a mug and drink it 30 to 45 minutes before bed. That timing is deliberate. Curcumin reaches meaningful blood levels within 30 to 60 minutes when absorption is properly supported. Drink it too close to sleep and the peak activity happens after you're already asleep. Drink it 30 to 45 minutes before and the curcumin is working on your inflammatory signaling exactly as you transition into deep sleep. Sit quietly while you drink it, no screens. Let it become a signal to your nervous system that the day is done. 5 more reasons. This works well for the over 50 body cortisol regulation. In healthy sleep, cortisol follows a clear arc, high in the morning, dropping steadily, lowest around midnight. In people carrying chronic inflammatory burden, evening cortisol stays too high, making deep sleep harder to reach. Curcumin has been shown to modulate the inflammatory signaling that keeps evening cortisol elevated. Indirect melatonin support. Most people do not realize that inflammation suppresses the pineal gland, the structure that produces melatonin. When inflammatory cytokines are chronically elevated, your own melatonin output often drops. By reducing inflammatory load, curcumin restores the environment for your body to produce its own melatonin rather than replacing it with a synthetic source. Liver support. Your liver does much of its detoxification and regeneration work between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. When the liver is burdened, common in people in their 50s with fatty liver or high triglycerides, its metabolic activity during this window can disrupt sleep. Curcumin is well documented to support liver function, making the liver's nighttime work smoother. Blood sugar stability from the cinnamon. After 50, blood sugar regulation becomes less precise. When glucose drops below a threshold in the early morning, often around 3 to 4 a.m. a year, the body triggers a cortisol and adrenaline release to bring it back up. For many people, that hormonal jolt is exactly what wakes them at 3 a.m. Cinnamon helps blunt that overnight blood sugar swing, reducing the trigger for those stress hormone wake-ups. The ritual itself. Your brain is highly pattern responsive. When you repeat the same sequence before sleep each night, your nervous system begins to anticipate the transition and lowers its arousal level in advance. Warm milk has a mild tryptophan-enhancing effect. Holding a warm drink lowers the stress response measurably. Over time, this becomes a powerful biological cue. A patient's story. I had a man in his late 50s, retired, low-stress life on paper, regular golf, reasonable diet, sleeping terribly. Waking at 2, lying awake for hours, foggy and irritable through most of the day. His labs showed mildly elevated CRP at 4.2 milligrams per liter. Normal is under 1. His doctor had noted it as slightly elevated but never connected it to his sleep. We discussed the inflammation connection, and he committed to this preparation along with a few supporting changes. Within 3 weeks, significant improvement. What he said stayed with me. I didn't realize how much background noise my body was making until it went quiet. That is exactly how inflammaging affects sleep, not dramatic. A persistent low-level hum of biological alertness that keeps you from dropping into real rest. His CRP at 3 months had dropped to 1.8, so nearly halved, and he was sleeping through most nights. Common mistakes to avoid: poor quality turmeric. Many commercial powders have curcumin content under 1%, grown for color, not potency. Look for a brand that specifies curcumin content on the label. 4% or above is the benchmark for therapeutic use. Skipping the black pepper. As we age, gut absorption of nutrients and bioactive compounds naturally becomes less efficient. Piperine may be even more important for your body than it would be for someone in their 30s. Without it, you are likely absorbing almost none of the curcumin, expecting overnight results. Turmeric works through gradual modulation of the inflammatory environment. Some people notice improvement in the first week, others need 2 to 3 weeks. The research showing significant sleep improvements use supplementation periods of 21 days or longer. Commit to a full month before evaluating. Drinking it too hot, boiling temperatures degrade curcumin. Warm and steaming, comfortable to sip is the right temperature. Your nightly checklist. 1. Make the preparation 30 to 45 minutes before bed. Turmeric, black pepper, fat-based milk, ginger, cinnamon, gentle heat, 5 to 7 minutes. 2. Do not boil it. Warm and steaming only. 3. Use turmeric with labeled curcumin content of 4% or higher. 4. Never skip the black pepper. 5. Drink it away from screens. Let it be quiet. 6. Be consistent for a minimum of 21 days. This is slow, deep repair, not a sedative. 7. If you take blood thinners or diabetes medications, check with your doctor first. Turmeric can have mild interactions with both. Sleep in your 50s and 60s is not a luxury. It is the foundation that blood sugar, blood pressure, immune function, memory, mood, and longevity all rest on. When it breaks down, everything downstream gets harder. But when you address the root cause, and for most people in this age group, inflammation is a massive part of it. The body responds. If you try this, come back and leave a comment. If your main issue is falling asleep in the first place, write A. If it is waking in the middle of the night, write B. If it is waking too early and not going back to sleep, write C. I read these comments and they shape what I cover next. I am Dr. William. Take care of yourself tonight.